Hi guys, it's Lara. Thank you all for watching and welcome back to my channel. So in today's Tea with Lara video, I'm gonna be kind of spilling the tea about myself because there's something I haven't been telling you for a while. The past couple of months have been really challenging for me, both physically and mentally. I've been dealing with a lot of pain, discomfort and nausea on a daily basis, and on top of that I made a pretty serious discovery that changed my life forever. And I needed to figure things out for myself first before I was ready to talk about it. So I kept basically everything as normal as possible on this channel so that you guys could enjoy my vlogs and the entire summer without unnecessarily worrying about me. I shared the information only with the people closest to me, but today I'm ready to sit down and talk about everything. So if that's something you're interested in, then please keep watching. Before we start, I would like to give you a fair trigger warning. I'm gonna be discussing certain diseases, some of them might be even terminal, and I'm also gonna be talking about some physical examinations, and that might not always sound pleasant, so I would not necessarily eat while watching this video. And this video might be also all over the place, so grab yourself something to drink. I have here my teacup with my favorite chocolate chai tea and almond milk, and it's a new teacup. It says Bonus Mama, and beneath that is a text that I would translate as, even though you haven't given me the gift of life, you made my life better. And that's because I'm not Josh's biological mom. And it's the most beautiful cup a son could give to their mother. It's just so wonderful. I was in tears when I unwrapped it, and he made not only my day but my decade. So if he's watching, Josh, thank you so much. I love you so much. I think the best way how to tell you all about this, how to explain everything, is to tell you how it all happened chronologically, which is also the best way for me to keep my train of thought. So one Saturday, Jack and I went to our morning boxing training together, which is for us kind of like a date. We're having so much fun training together. It was a regular Saturday. It was quite hot that day. I got up very early and went to the woods with Shadow. And after I took care of Shadow, I had my breakfast. I always make sure that I eat my breakfast pretty early so that there would be at least 2 hours between my food and my boxing training. So I had, as always, overnight oats, recipes here on this channel, so I'll link it here in the right corner and also down below. But I could barely finish that breakfast. I felt kind of weird, but I thought, okay, it's probably because it already got so warm. So I didn't really think much of it. So we grabbed our bikes and went to our boxing training. Boxing was a lot of fun. I felt like I had normal energy, but I started feeling a little nauseous, which was weird. And again, I thought it's just because it was so humid and so warm. And then we stretched, we showered, and we went to Swing Kitchen, which is a vegan place not far from our boxing gym. I reviewed the place here on this channel, so I'll link the video down below if you're interested. And normally when we go there after boxing, we usually we're always super hungry after boxing. So we usually get a burger menu, and I always order a cake with it, actually 2 cakes. So I would always eat half of the burger there, and all the fries and one of the cakes. And I would always bring the second half of the burger and the second cake home as a snack. So you can see that I'm an eater. But that day I did not feel like eating at all because my stomach really didn't feel right. So I thought, I don't know. So I had a piece of cake, which was of course not necessarily the best choice and definitely not the best nutritional value, but that was as much as I could eat. I felt like I could not, eat more than that. So I bought one burger to go without anything, like without fries or anything like that. And at home, hours later, I ate the first half of the burger, and then in the evening I finished the burger, even though I have to admit I finished the burger because I knew I had to get in some calories and not because I had appetite or because I would feel hungry. And at night I started having really strong abdominal pain in the upper area here between my ribs. It started burning and cramping, and I really felt bad. I had also lower back pain, and when I woke up in the morning after the long night, because I kept waking up because of the pain, I felt like something was really weird. So I measured my temperature and I found out that I had really high temperature. So instead of driving to the woods with Shadow, as always, we just went here in this area on a walk, and Then I measured my temperature again, and after I've seen that it kept rising, I knew I had to call a doctor. I did not want to call the ambulance right away because I thought it would be the best to call a different health emergency number where I could discuss all the symptoms first, because I thought, you know what, it was already Sunday, maybe I would get some tips what to do to feel at least a little bit better till the next day when our physician had their office hours again. So I discussed all my symptoms with the person on the phone. They also asked me what I was eating the day before, what I was doing the day before. And when I told them I went boxing, they wanted to know whether I had some kind of abdominal trauma, but I didn't get any punches in my stomach that day, so that was not the case. I also didn't have my period. So they kept asking so many questions just to be sure what to do. And since my temperature was still rising, they decided it was the best to send someone to our home, an emergency doctor. So about 20 minutes later, a doctor came and they examined my abdominal area. They asked again many questions. Shadow was not happy about them touching me. He actually growled at the doctor shortly, but he was, other than that, a super good boy. So anyway, the doctor was worried, especially because he thought it might be appendicitis, but I did not have any pain in the right bottom area. All the pain that I had was here on the top where my rib cage is coming together. It was burning and cramping, and it felt like a lot of pressure, really weird. And I also had lower back pain, which was most likely unrelated, maybe because of my stretching, because I stretched my back the day before. So I don't know. And they measured my temperature twice during the time they were in our home. So first when they came, and then sometimes in between, and it went up again. So the person said, you know what, you have to go to a hospital. So they called an ambulance for me. They came again like 20 minutes later, and they brought me to a hospital. The ambulance staff was incredibly sweet and caring, by the way, super nice people. They brought me to a hospital where I was assigned a doctor. The doctor was called to an emergency, so I had to wait for quite a bit. At some point, the nurse came out and told me that they could do at least a blood scan because they were sure the doctor would want to do it anyway. And they said that normally the results of your blood scan is what takes the longest, so we wanted to use the time efficiently. And they also asked me a couple of questions, and after they found out I haven't really eaten anything, they gave me an IV and they gave me a painkiller. Then after a while, the doctor came back and they examined me, and I had to explain everything once again. And they also asked a permission to examine my butt because they wanted to know whether there was some change in the color of my stool. And that's why I told you not to eat with this video. I warned you. And they said that it would be the best to do an ultrascan, so I was sent to a different part of the hospital. It was so quiet there. There was literally nobody. I had to ring a bell for someone to come because, yeah, it was empty. If you would have dropped a pin, you would have heard it. That was kind of eerie. So I was brought to a room where I should have been examined, like with the ultrascan. They told me to lay down. I could already lift my shirt a little bit, and the doctor was on their way, they said. But the doctor didn't come for 5 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, so I figured I might as well take a nap here. So I curled on the hospital bed and I cuddled in my hoodie and I fell asleep, and I have no idea how long I slept, but it was probably quite long. When I then remember when I came out of the hospital, it was probably up to 2 hours. What woke me up was actually when the doctor came. They apologized. They told me they were called to an emergency. So of course I told them not to worry about it because after all it was a hospital. These things happen. And I also told him that it wasn't so bad after all because I got a nice nap, especially since I couldn't sleep that well at night because of the pain. And they started doing the examination. So they went through all my organs, and so far everything seemed all right. They could not find my appendix even though I still had it. So that was really weird. And then they came to my liver, and that's where they found something. So they found a change in my liver tissue, something between 6 and 7 centimeters big. And they said it did not look dangerous. They threw some 3 fancy names at me, what it could be. So of course at that time I didn't have any idea what it meant. And they said that I should have an MRI scan and, depending on the findings, possibly a biopsy. So of course when you find out there's something on your liver, all kinds of thoughts can pop into your mind. So some people would probably freak out and think I'm gonna die. Some people would just take it, you know, relaxed. My twisted brain, all I could think of was the scene from Fight Club where the narrator says,
"If I did have a tumor, I'd name it Marla."
So I don't know, I don't really function right apparently. Anywho, on that bombshell, I've been sent back downstairs to the doctor who first examined me in the hospital, and we went together through the findings. So they explained to me that the 3 fancy names, I had no clue about what they meant, were 3 names of different benign liver tumors. So they confirmed that whatever it was on my liver, it did not look dangerous, but I still had to have an MRI scan, and depending on the findings, maybe even biopsy. They also explained to me that whatever it was on my liver, that it would not cause the type of symptoms I've been having, and certainly not temperature. So they told me that I should go to my physician right away the next day. So I've been released from the hospital, and the next day, as soon as our regular doctor had office hours, I went there. My doctor and I went through all the findings. So they wanted to have another blood scan done in order to keep an eye on the inflammation value, and they also wanted to have another ultrasound scan done because the doctor in the hospital couldn't see the appendix, and they wanted to be sure that we were not missing anything there. So when the values came back, when the findings came back, so the blood scan said that my inflammation values were higher again, and the ultrasound scan confirmed the finding on my liver, but fortunately there was nothing wrong with my appendix, so we could at least exclude that. So the doctor gave me a transfer permit for an MRI scan, and they ordered me to come the next day again in order to do another blood scan. So in the meantime, I was looking into institutes where I could do the MRI scan. So most places had the first possible appointment by the end of August or beginning of September, but fortunately I was able to find one where I could book an appointment for the 2nd of August. And since I was still in so much pain and I still could not really eat much, I was eating only very mild food, and I've been drinking lots of ginger tea. So the next day I went to the physician, to my doctor, and we had another blood scan done, and then when it came back, the inflammation value significantly dropped, my temperature was gone. So that was kind of weird. There was nothing there, but I was still having all these symptoms. And everybody kept repeating, it can be the liver, it can be the liver, but no one could give me any answers. So here I was, I did not know what was wrong with me. I was still having quite a lot of pain. I felt nauseous. And whenever I ate or drank something, I had so much pressure and pain in my upper belly. It was so uncomfortable and so painful. So that was really energy consuming and really difficult for me to get calories in. So I have to tell you, over the last few months, I lost about 6 pounds, and it's not like I've been big before, right? So, you know, you get the idea. So what I did was, instead of having my regular oats, like regular portion of oats in the morning, I significantly reduced the amount. And when I went out with Shadow in the morning, I had a banana with me or a protein bar. Then when I came home, I had the tiny overnight oats portion. And then the rest of the food I would eat throughout the day, I would again divide in small portion, and I would eat more often. So that gave me at least some relief, and I could get in at least some calories. But I had zero appetite, so I often forgot to eat, which was of course not ideal. And again, I lost some weight, but I still went through life as though nothing was happening, because I had to keep my sanity and I wanted to keep everything normal. So I was filming my videos for here, I was going to my boxing training, I was going to work, I was working on some tutorials for my DIY channel, because that was the only way how to not freak out. And at the beginning of August, then I had my MRI scan, and then I got my results a few days later. So it came out that I have a large liver hemangioma, and it sits in the segment 6 and 7, so that's closer to one of my kidneys, and that's the size. So that's pretty big, and that thing lives inside of my liver. Good times, yay! So anyway, a hemangioma is basically a blood sponge, so that's not necessarily dangerous in its nature. So it could be a mark on a person's body or something inside of a person's organ. So in my case, it's a large liver hemangioma. Large because of the diameter. So anything between 5 and 10 centimeters in diameter counts as large. Anything beyond 10 centimeters in diameter would be giant hemangioma. What's dangerous about liver hemangiomas is that when they reach a certain stage, they can keep growing and then cause discomfort, and they can also rupture if a person would have abdominal injury, and that would mean internal bleeding. So if I would have an injury and start bleeding internally, I would have to get to the hospital very quickly, otherwise I would die. So that's what makes them a bitch. Anyway, so at this point, I had at least some answers when it came to my liver. I was still dealing with the pain and the cramps and the nausea, but it was a start. I scheduled an appointment with a specialist. It was a private doctor I picked, a surgeon who was specialized in liver. So we sat down together and talked about the hemangioma. They explained a little bit something about hemangiomas in general. They also looked at the pictures and told me where it was located and that I was supposed to be careful when it came to abdominal trauma because that could bleed. And they told me that once they had a patient whose liver hemangioma spontaneously ruptured, but they said that was the only case they experienced. And they did not really make it specifically clear how dangerous such internal bleeding could be, so I wasn't really thinking much of it. I told them that I was boxing, so they said that I should not be fighting. And when I explained that I could adjust my training to just fitness boxing, they said it was okay. And when it came to the other symptoms, they told me that they didn't think that it had anything to do with the hemangioma and that they suspected that it had something to do with my stomach. So they said I should have a gastroscopy and colonoscopy done. So I got the papers from them so that I could schedule an appointment. I believe a day later I emailed them because I also wanted to ask a few questions I forgot to ask when I was there. So I also asked about the possibility of removing the hemangioma because I wanted to know A, first, is it even possible in that size? B, would the insurance pay for that? And C, I wanted to know how risky something like that would be because when it comes to things like that, I want to make an informed decision. I want to know what risks are there on all sides before I decide what to do. It's still my body and it's still my health. But I got a very short answer. They explained that yes, the insurance would cover that and yes, it's possible to have the thing taken out by choice. But they did not really explain anything about the surgery. All they said was that, oh, it's a routine surgery, not a big deal. I just had one in the morning and I'm having a second one in the evening. And I was like, are you trying to impress me or are you trying to explain to me what risks there are? Like, I don't know. I did not really feel like I was in good hands. So I decided I'm gonna see another doctor to have a second opinion, and in the meantime I scheduled appointments for my gastroscopy and colonoscopy. Colonoscopy was certainly not my favorite part of all this. It's actually not so much the examination itself because I got short anesthesia for that, so I didn't feel anything. I just woke up. Later, Jack picked me up. I felt super floppy. He brought me home and I took a nap and then I was fine. It was a preparation for that. So I don't know if any of you knows about colonoscopy, but basically you have to completely empty your colon. So I was given a list that listed what I was allowed to eat and what I was not allowed to eat about like 3 days before. And then the day before the colonoscopy, I was allowed to have only a very light breakfast and something mushed for lunch. And then starting at 12 a.m., I had to start drinking 4 liters of a really nasty stuff that would basically clear me through, plus 2 liters of water. So you have to keep in mind that was still during the time when I was not able to drink or eat much at a time because I was in so much pain. So that was a real struggle for me. Plus it tasted so horrible. I felt like it was getting more and more in my mouth. And then I cleared my colon. I was running back and forth to the toilet. And the next day I had my colonoscopy, but even though I was doing really everything according to the list they gave me, my colon wasn't clean enough, so they said I had to have another examination in 8 weeks. So that was really not the best news I got, but they said it's going to be a different examination and I don't have to do this same preparation, so hopefully it's not going to be as bad. And then 2 days later I had my gastroscopy. And before I got the results from my gastroscopy, I already had an appointment scheduled with a second specialist. That doctor was literally an angel. I felt really being taken seriously and being taken care of. We had a wonderful, long, constructive talk about everything, and they were really helpful. So first we talked about the hemangioma, and they explained specifically how dangerous the internal bleeding could be. And they were the person who also suggested that I would be carrying with me all the time some kind of emergency information, so hence the bracelet. They told me I should definitely tell my trainers and my training partners, which was something I was trying to avoid because I didn't want to be that person in the gym, but it makes, of course, absolute sense. So ever since, I'm always carrying a card with me with all the information and all the steps necessary should I get injured, so that people know to call ambulance right away when I'm at my training. And then we talked about the other symptoms. They were also of the opinion that it was caused by my stomach. So since I didn't have the results from my gastroscopy yet, they told me to take a certain medicine in the meantime that would help with the cramps and with the pain a little bit. And they told me to call them back right away as soon as I got the results. Hi guys, this is Editing Lara. I actually just realized that I never said anything about the gastroscopy results. So it came out that I was dealing with chronic gastritis. And the doctor told me that either I've been already having chronic gastritis before and then I ate or drank something that made it worse, that triggered it, and that's why I started having all these symptoms. Or it's also possible that I suddenly had, for whatever reason, an acute gastritis, but it hasn't been treated for the past few months because I didn't know until 2 months later that it was gastritis, and that's why it developed into chronic gastritis. And that explained all the symptoms when it came to the abdominal pain and pressure and cramps and nausea. One thing it did not explain, I've been told that gastritis normally does not cause that high temperatures. My temperatures were really on the verge of fever, so we still don't know where they came from. It might have been something from above, because honestly, if I didn't have the temperatures, I don't think I would have gone to a doctor that quick. And one big punch in my stomach area, and that could have gone really, really badly because I wouldn't have known about the hemangioma. So after all, it's probably a good thing. And one more thing before we go back to the video, I told you that I lost about 6 pounds, but I actually just weighed myself and I found out that I actually lost in total almost 10 pounds. So it was 4.5 kilos for those of you who use a metric system. And that's quite a lot because I've been already quite ripped before. And today I'm wearing my skinny jeans and they are really pretty loose around the waist. So I sure hope that I'm not gonna continue losing weight. And now back to the video. They also told me that since I'm so active and since I'm boxing, that they thought it would be a good idea to see a surgeon they knew who was not so scalpel happy, someone who would perform surgery only when necessary. So they called them and then they gave me their number so that I could schedule an appointment, because they said they might want to look at your case specifically and then decide whether they would recommend a surgery or not. So I went to the surgeon and I found that it was again a wonderful doctor, a wonderful person. I felt like I could trust them. They examined my belly and squeezed me through from various points just to be sure that some of the symptoms I was having were not caused by the hemangioma after all. But it looked all fine. I did not have any pain at the places where they squeezed me. And they explained to me everything about a possible surgery, but they also said that they would advise against it because it would be very invasive. They explained to me that many surgeons nowadays don't open up the belly when they do surgeries in the abdominal area, but they perform so-called laparoscopy, which means 2 small incisions are being made, 2 tunnels are being inserted inside of the abdominal area, everything is being pumped up, and then they go in with the tools and camera and whatnot, and they perform surgeries like that. But they said that they were not fond of that method when it came to the liver because it was very risky, And if something would rupture or bleed, then I would have to be opened anyway, but very quickly, and some other organs could be damaged. So if they were performing the surgery themselves, they would open up right away, which is obviously very invasive. And then they also explained to me that once the hemangioma would be taken out, I would have a tennis ball sized hole in my liver that would have to be sealed and monitored for bleeding. And in general, I would have to spend a few days on the ICU and then in the hospital. So it all sounds really like something I don't want to do necessarily. And then we talked about all the risks from boxing and everything else. And they also prescribed a certain medicine for the gastritis that I'm taking right now. So I'm taking every day in the morning something that's protecting the walls of my stomach. And I'm supposed to call them, I believe, the day after tomorrow. I've been supposed to take that only for 10 days. And then we will discuss further steps. And I explained also to them that I had a friend who was a nutritionist, that I'm gonna get a special meal plan. They said that was a great idea, that I definitely have to go on a certain diet for the gastritis. So we're gonna have another talk in a few days. And I really felt like that was really great advice. They also told me that I should definitely have another MRI scan in 6 months in the same place where I had my first MRI scan, so that we could compare the pictures well. And we just have to monitor Marla if she will be growing or not. And if that thing will get to a certain point, or like to a certain size, I might have to have a surgery like that after all. Sometimes in future, maybe it won't grow, but they said that they expect that it will probably grow. So that's a story about Marla, the tumor, and about my other health issues. Even though it's been a really hard time the past months, I'm actually at the end really grateful I got the gastritis, because if that didn't happen, if I didn't go to the hospital back then, I would have never found out that I had a hemangioma, and I was ready to spar this year. So that means I would get probably one punch in my abdominal area, and that could have been it. So that's actually a pretty scary thought. So at the end of the day, I'm actually grateful for all the stuff that happened. I just wish that someone had the idea to send me to a gastroscopy right away, so that I could have saved myself so much pain. My friend Christina, who is a nutritionist, put together a vegan meal plan for gastritis for me. And I'm eating now a very simple and clean diet that's very gentle to my stomach, and it's helping so much. And together with the medicine that I got from the surgeon, I was actually able to eat full portions for the last, I would say, like 2, maybe 3 days. And that feels amazing, because I can tell how much more energy I finally have. So I'm sure I'm gonna put the weight back on in no time. And I'm definitely feeling way better. Right now, it's important for me that my stomach doesn't get completely empty, so I also eat snacks between meals. It's usually some very mild fruit, sometimes a coconut yogurt, just a plain white coconut yogurt. And I'm drinking herbal teas, usually fennel tea or mallow tea. And that, of course, also helps. Definitely nothing too cold or nothing too hot. So it's gonna be a process, but I'll get through it. And about the hemangioma, I'm okay with that. I know that I have to be careful when it comes to certain things, but I can control these risks in my day-to-day life, and I'm certainly not gonna have such invasive surgery that's just not necessary. I'm gonna keep an eye on it, and we'll see what the future will bring, whether at some point I will have to have the surgery or not. So I hope I won't. But if that's gonna be the case, I will have to go through it. It's not like I have a choice there, right? I also want to shortly talk about how it was for me before I got the MRI results. So before I got the results, even though everybody was telling me that they thought that the tumor was very likely benign, I had to consider the possibility that it would be bad news. You know, the C word. Not the one that rhymes with hunt, but the one that rhymes with dancer. So I thought about it thoroughly, and I found that I was actually okay with whatever is about to come. I felt like whatever is gonna come, I can't change that, but I can change my attitude and how I react to it. And I also knew that even if it were bad news, there were ways how to deal with it, so I was okay with that. But of course, I still hoped for the best. It only confirmed and put emphasis on how important it is to prioritize in my life, and how important it was also to be selective when it came to the people I am dealing with. So I admit I ghosted a few people because I felt like they did not make me feel comfortable anyway, and I felt like some people were just not good for me, so I decided to kick them out of my life. So that felt actually very liberating, and I was simply enjoying every single day to the fullest, which is something I'm doing anyway. I am so grateful for my life. I'm not taking anything for granted, and I feel like I got already so much more than what I could ask for. So for me, every additional day is like a wonderful gift. But I'll be the first to admit that I went to church a little bit more often, and of course I prayed, and I also prayed that I would stay at least long enough so that I would not break Shadow's heart, because he would not understand if anything happened to me, and I wouldn't want him to think that I abandoned him. And I also started having kind of funny thoughts retrospectively, because I was like, okay, if that's bad news, I have to make sure that Jack wouldn't eat some crap when I'm gone, so I would have to put together a cookbook for him. So, you know, I'm a person who's really practical, so I kind of detached myself from the situation, and I already had a plan what to do before I go. It's just, it sounds probably stupid, but that helped me to deal with the whole situation. And of course, once I had the confirmation that the tumor was benign, I was relieved. But that's all I have to say for today. If you guys have any more questions, you can write them down below, and either I'm gonna answer in the comments, or if that should be more questions, I could do a follow-up video. We'll see. But that's it for the day. Now you're up to date. Now you know what was going on in my life. And nothing's gonna change basically here on this channel. I'm actually looking forward to the fall, and I'm so much looking forward to Christmas. And I'm gonna think of some really nice and fun videos. So thank you all so much for watching. Take good care of yourself, guys. I appreciate you so much. God bless you, and see you soon. Bye.